Overcast, the podcast beyond World of Warcraft.
Welcome everybody to another MoCast episode. This is episode number 10. And this is your podcast for, beyond World of Warcraft, where we get community figures from WoW. Yeah. We talk a little bit about WoW, but we more than that go deeply into their personality and who they are off camera, what they do, what their life is, how the journey into becoming a streamer or a YouTuber has come to be.
Not only that, there's more, because actually the guest we have today, there's a lot more into it than just streaming WoW and being a WoW community figure, right? Now, who are we talking about today? We have like a super special guest. It's been a long time coming for this one. The guy who helped us with our leveling guides. He's an absolute beast, and I'm pretty sure he's a treasure of stories. So everybody, give it up for DesMephisto!
Yes, go!
How you doing, my man?
I am doing fantastic. First and foremost, thank you guys for having me on. This is something I'm really excited about.
Oh man, it's our pleasure first and foremost, man, because we kind of known each other for a while now. We collaborated on videos and stuff. It's been, especially since we started doing this, you've also taken all of your streaming game and all of the goals you set out for yourself. I mean, more publicly, you're out there much more, and that's a huge step up. So congrats for you to that. But hey, we won't talk, not now at least. Let the man speak. So, okay, DesMephisto, tell the world who you are, what do you do, what do you stand for? Just a brief thing, then we can go into the meat and potatoes of it.
All right. So this pretty much all started with leveling. I wanted to go ahead and focus on helping others level. It's something that's always been something very special to me. Yeah. It turns out that I'm autistic. So when I was playing the game, and I really enjoyed that kind of repetitive action behind leveling, a lot of that was me actually taking part in self-soothing behavior. And so as I went through all of this, as I learned my diagnosis, as I learned that I was autistic, I started noticing things that were kind of upsetting to me. And I started developing this platform on Twitch and online in the community. Yep. And I started wanting to focus and center around helping others, which we've continued to do. And I mean, we've raised over $22,000 for charity since I've started in 2019.
That's beautiful, man. That's absolutely beautiful. It's not that often you see folks like DesMephisto who have this, this path or find this niche that they can pretty much be themselves and play and also help with, pretty, I would say, noble causes and, bringing awareness for a lot of the stuff that usually in gaming you don't see that much. Probably in the last couple of years, there's been much more emphasis on it, but specifically when we're talking about streamers and, more specifically for WoW, I haven't seen that much. Obviously, Blizz has their Make-A-Wish Foundation. They have that part of the things. But when it comes to the actual content creators, there's not enough DesMephistos around, man. That's
people who actually take initiative into doing things and being, organizing events for charitable purposes. That's really admirable, man. And gotta say, it's really impressive. Yeah. So
we bow to this.
Props.
Yes, we definitely doing your part. Okay, we're gonna get into all of those details. You mentioned a lot of things. We're gonna try to nitpick everything that you went to there. But let's start it off from the beginning. So what was like the first thing that got you into, or what really got you into World of Warcraft in the first place? When did it start? Why? Give me a little background.
So, depending on how much background you want, the first Blizzard game I played was Diablo. That led to Diablo 2, which eventually led to Warcraft 3. In Warcraft 3, there was like some custom maps, so they would have like, a custom map made talking more about Jara and etc. And you started to see more of this lore. And then you find out about World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft was in beta at the time, so I joined a private server community called GotWow. Ooh. And so you would be able to make your own, like you would basically be a game master. You would download the server and you could literally interact in the world and kind of develop your own quests. And that was where I started to really get into it. I got kind of burnt out. I struggle with things like with communities and stuff. So the GotWow community, I didn't really feel like I fit in, which kind of turned me off of WoW for a while.
Yeah.
And I ended up picking it up though November 26, 2004, or 26. So Black Friday, 2 days after WoW's release.
Wow, how specific? What a memory! That's beautiful, man. But okay, so you started out pretty fucking early. But dude, what is this dedicated love for the warrior class, my dude? You have to give me something there, man. I mean, just for reference, how many warriors do you have? 220 right now? Is it 50?
Yes, it's 50.
50?
Holy shit, last time I checked it was like 44.
No, he went beyond all the class race combination possible. He went beyond that shit. So please, what is the story there?
So I guess the best way to look at it is I've always liked plate classes, always liked the idea of being in melee and being able to take a bunch of hits. That's one of the things that I don't like about rogues and some other melee classes, is that they did a lot of damage, but they couldn't take a lot of hits. And I felt like part of it also reflected my own experiences, right? That you're constantly getting beat down, you're dealing with all these difficulties and struggles in real life.
Yep.
And despite all that, you keep fighting. And so it was really easy for me to kind of relate to the idea of a warrior. When it came to like things like dual wielding, Fury especially reached out to me because I always loved the idea of just having these like two giant one-handers in your hands and then just being like, just being this badass bloodthirsty warrior. Yeah. And of course, the other aspect is that in WoW, warriors, not initially, but then with Burning Crusade, Blood Elves couldn't be warriors, and then that changed, then I think Cataclysm. But warriors were always this idea of a mantle. It's an idea, it's a cause, it's a belief that you take on and you keep fighting despite everything. We also see that a lot with Fury, especially in Legion, where, if you're killed, you keep fighting and then you actually have the chance to resurrect. It's this idea that I've really appreciated in World of Warcraft, and it's touched me in a way that I guess is very meaningful.
Oh man, Flame, I think maybe you can relate to this a little bit because I know you love Warrior too, and look at this philosophy behind it.
I know the appeal because for me, and I also had the tendency to look towards certain characters, certain specs, certain classes, something that I could either find myself in or an ideal that I could strive for, and Warrior was always the fearless guy that just goes in, that just can take a lot of beating, dish a lot of beating, and still come on top. You didn't have to think of anything complicated. You didn't have to do like really neat strategies. It was just you and the enemy, and that always really cool. I'm more towards Prot Warrior because I just like to be the guy that just is able to take the biggest hit.
Take a bit more.
But I totally resonate with you, my man. And every character that I play is something that I there's an ideal in it that I strive towards. I get the warrior, man. I get the warrior. I'm not gonna lie.
I got the same vibe when I first chose my paladin. I was looking in BC. I was looking at like you had the descriptions like in the right, and you would see what they can do. And it was a warrior. So I totally related with the warrior. But just to add to the philosophy of this over there, when I saw the paladin, it had that heal component too. So it was the description like a warrior that can, soak a lot of damage or take a lot of hits and resurrect his foes in battle. It was like, oh man, this is so virtuous. I can take a beating, then I can also help others. It's so so cool. Like when you have that mindset, that fantasy mindset to like trying to, relate to the class you're getting. It's beautiful stuff. Oof. Yeah. Nice!
Absolutely.
What a nice way to get into things. I love it.
A Fury Warrior. That's. I was actually gonna ask you, because I've seen you play a lot of Fury in your videos. Like, is Fury like the best spec? I don't know if you play any arms, but it's clearly Fury for you.
Yes, Fury is like the namesake single-minded Fury. It's pretty much the same for me. It's literally it's the only thing I care about.
That's awesome.
I don't know. It's the play style. It's the way it goes. It's just that constant onslaught. For me in World of Warcraft, that RPG aspect, getting that immersion, that feeling like you really are invested in that character is.
Yep.
It's part of what makes me love WoW.
That's
100%.
I think that's true for a lot of the people. And you did say love WoW, you love Warrior. But we did want to also get into this a little bit more, because that's kind of how we got in touch with you. For everybody that doesn't know, when we started to do a lot of guides, we obviously do more basic class guides, stuff like that. But we also have the leveling guide. It's like, I wonder who knows a lot of shit about leveling. Who has the encyclopedia of leveling? And I don't know. I think it was a Reddit post you had at the time, and if I remember correctly, also was a forum post.
There was a Reddit. It was a Reddit for sure. Before contacting DesMephisto, I did a leveling guide based on his forum Reddit post. I didn't know at the time, it was him, and we eventually worked together. But it's for all of you who had speed leveled during BFA at some point or another. Doesn't matter if it's our guide or not. You can thank DesMephisto for that. I mean, Jesus Christ, the information over there was wow.
It was pretty cool to see somebody so passionate about leveling. You even know what enchants to get, what weapons, and what is like, whoa, this is kind of cool. Because before WoW became super endgamey, like, raiding and PvP, I always loved leveling. Back in Classic and TBC, all I did was leveling all the time. And that aspect always resonated with me because, leveling means you're progressing, you're getting better, getting stronger, getting wiser. You can name it whatever you want. So is that the thing for you? Is that like what you enjoy in WoW the most? Is leveling what makes you tick? What makes it tick for you?
Yes, actually. So that's exactly it. That constant progression was so satisfying, especially since in-game tends to be so repetitive, right? Like doing Mythic Plus for the 20th time, you're not going to get a lot of variation or change. Whereas with leveling, I feel like I'm constantly growing in power. I don't have to do 20 dungeons to get an upgrade. Every single time I level up, I get an ability, I get an upgrade, I feel a little bit stronger. I mean, obviously that's changed a little bit with how they do the new scaling systems, and especially now that leveling is so fast in Warlord or in Shadowlands.
Yep.
Sorry, you're going to be leveling in Warlord, spoiler alert.
We'll get into it. We'll get into it.
So it's a little less satisfying now compared to, say, Classic, where you had more of that immersive journey with leveling.
Sure.
But it's something that still adds a lot of satisfying experiences with progression, and I feel like no speed level is the same. So that's also this really nice kind of experience for me.
That's you mentioned the Shadowlands thing, and this goes directly into our other curiosity now. How do you feel? We'll get into the details, but in general, Des, how do you feel about the whole leveling revamp in Shadowlands? Are you down with it? Do you think it's cool? I know you did a lot of posts on improving the stuff. You guys had a chat and back and forth on it, but I want to know your general impression on the revamp.
So it's good and bad. I think it's good for the average player. I don't know entirely. I don't like how fast it is. Making it so that you can level up in any expansion, I feel like you should have to be able to explore a lot of the expansion, but then it's hard to go ahead and create a efficient or effective time.
Yeah.
That gets you to end game, which is kind of what Blizzard launched. Right now, it takes me about 5 hours to level in Warlords on the new. So for a 10 to 50 character, it's about 5 hours. For 1 to 50, it's probably about 5.5. I can definitely get that number down, especially once I min-max consumables a bit more.
Yep.
And then people using Azeroth Autopilot, Mr. GM, he just did a speed level with AAP using the routes. Took him almost 7 hours. The average player could expect between 8 to 10 hours pretty easily there.
Yep.
That's a really, really good number. But heirlooms, a lot of the way that they're handling heirlooms right now, they have the 60% rested consumed EXP. A lot of the items and stats on it are really, really bad. I think at this point that if you want to actually have an active engaged leveling experience, you're going to be spending more time actually making crafted gear with relics of the past. So you can make gears with sockets, etc. So min-maxing and creating a faster experience, especially for speed leveling, is going to be a lot more complicated. We had to deal with that somewhat in Battle for Azeroth with heirloom swapping for 110 to 120 with the Azerite gear. So you would equip Azerite gear because it was so much stronger than heirlooms, and then you would swap to heirloom gear when you would turn in quests or bonus objectives so that you would get that full EXP bonus.
Well, I guess
Sorry.
it's everything. No, it's all good. I'm thinking about everything that they add, like especially revamping the leveling system. There's always this good and bad. It can never be too good
Yeah.
or too bad. It's or perfect. As much as we would like to strive for perfection, it does. I mean, overall, it does feel faster at this point, even with the heirloom mess and all of that.
Oh yeah, it's definitely faster.
Definitely faster, yeah, because well, they probably wanted this for sure. You mentioned that it would be more engaging for new players to experience more of the expansions. But how do you think that they could have made that possible? I mean, thinking about all of the different time frames you will have on achieving a certain amount of levels within each expansion prior to Shadowlands. Do you think there would be like a streamlined system where like you would just have like a couple of major quests and move along, or how would you suggest that would be for players to actually experience more of the previous expansions?
I think there's a couple of options. One, I think they should have done something special with Chromie Time. So with Chromie Time, they should have added an XP modifier to actually make the experience more difficult, so that when you go to other expansions, that you would have kind of a new game plus experience, kind of like Dark Souls, etc., where you would go in with more power, but you would have a harder experience. There'd be more kind of punishing aspects, but in exchange, you would get greater rewards. Greater rewards could be cosmetic aspects. It could be upgrades for heirlooms, things that could actually modify the way you level within the content. And it would kind of give players a bit more reason to engage with leveling, rather than making leveling what Blizzard is pushing for now, a passive experience, which would be very nice to actually have leveling be more active and engaging.
Oh yeah, this is something that I can totally agree with you, my man, because like I said, leveling is always my favorite part in any RPG I play. Not as much in WoW anymore, because WoW is it's a lot about the end game for me today. But if I play any other RPG, leveling and getting new stuff is really cool. And I always struggle with how could they make leveling matter, because they have to make it matter for the player to feel incentivized to actually level and not just like speed through it. I remember the days when, oh my god, I can't wait for that one more level. I'm gonna get charge. Oh, I want charge so bad. That was that kind of feeling I haven't had since TBC. That was what, 14, 13 years ago. And I really wish we could get that back. And we did talk about this kind of, we wanted to make a kind of a special video about this kind of topic. And it's good that we have a lot more context now, to say the least.
Oh yeah.
You played a lot more, and I think Chromie Time changed over the course of Alpha and Beta. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. So it's Chromie Time's completely different now. The way that a lot of it is approached and set up, I definitely don't see anything like I mentioned happening at all, which makes me really sad. But I think it would have been really nice to actually have that more engaging and interactive experience, because Chromie Time is a whole separate mode. You're in a separate phase. So basically, one of the major things that you might have noticed in BFA is that if you were an Alliance character leveling in Red Ridge with War Mode on, you were getting constantly ganked by 120s who were doing the War Mode or War Campaign.
Yeah.
With Chromie Time, you're in a separate phase. You'll never see another 120. Well, in this case, 60 or 50. As soon as you hit 40 or as soon as you hit 50, you're actually kicked out of Chromie Time. The only thing that you might be encountering is level 49 twinks that have it set specifically for Chromie Time. So you might still deal with some griefing, but possibly less likely.
Well, I think it's all for the better. I'm pretty sure their intent is to make it, because it does seem like the new leveling stuff is being catered to draw in new players. You got to agree with this, because like the prior leveling experience, as much as efficient you could have been for a brand new player trying to get into WoW without a level boost or something, it would have been pretty tedious. So
it took me 15 hours just to do 20 to 60 without heirlooms. I did this back in like 8.15 or 8.2. Yeah, no, it took me 15 hours just to do 20 to 60. And again, this is as someone who is very, very experienced with leveling.
Of course. Yeah.
Imagine being a new player and having to go through that. Now, like as a new player, it's going to take you about maybe, like it took me 12 hours without heirlooms leveling up through Battle for Azeroth. Your new player might take them 15, but again, 12 hours for that experience versus 15 hours for 20 to 60.
Yeah,
it's a
big,
huge difference.
Yeah, it's big. Well, this kind of the thing, right? Because Flame was mentioning like the appreciating the journey while leveling. The thing is, you appreciated that when you had like one expansion, Burning Crusade.
Yeah,
it at this point in the game, and this mentioned this during the BFA. There is so much. A story being mixed and intertwined in quests that sometimes don't even make sense, and it's hard to enjoy the journey with this current leveling experience that was so. And I'm pretty sure they recognize that. I mean, come on, man, let's be serious. We know now we're focusing. Most of the community focuses on the end game. That's what WoW has turned into. Get to the end game fast. But how much do you think you would have enjoyed the current leveling experience if you would have just started in WoW and understand it? Because it's like, oh,
yeah. No, that I'm super, super happy that they're doing these changes.
Yeah, it's a good. And overall, I think it's for the better for sure. Well, all right, you nerds. Enough about World of Warcraft and all this leveling and warrior nonsense. How about this? So, Des, I'm not 100% up to date to this, but are you still waiting for a response from Guinness for the longest marathon of WoW?
Yeah, so it didn't go quite as planned. One of the issues was the official rules state that it has to be a public realm, and since I leveled on alpha while doing it, it disqualified me.
No, man, no. But you are you thinking of trying it again? Is it in the plan? Is it something you're striving for?
It's not in the plan, so to speak, but it is something I am thinking about. With Shadowlands coming out, I'm planning on approximately like maybe a 30-hour stream, and depending on how I feel, maybe go longer. It's one of those things. No, maybe we could go for it. I know doing that 36 hours wrecked me emotionally and mentally.
Yeah. I can imagine.
I lost the ability to sleep well for like 2 weeks. Like I would just like shut my eyes and try to sleep, and I couldn't even picture anything in my head. Like that's the kind of sleeper I am. I have to like envision things, like daydream, and then I'll fall asleep. I couldn't do that for a solid 2 weeks.
Oh man,
it was brutal.
Well, so guys, in case you don't know, so the Guinness World Book currently holds the longest marathon of WoW. I think it's 32 hours or something, and Des went for breaking that. Well, he can talk a little bit more on what was the actual intent, because there's more to that. He wanted to break it and go to 35, right, in World of Warcraft. But I wanted to ask you, how does getting ready for breaking a Guinness World Record go? I mean, how do you prepare for that? Did you have any, I don't know, pre-planning or something, any strategy, or just said, fuck it, let's do it?
Pretty much the fuck it, let's do it.
Like a true warrior, my friend, charge!
Yeah, no, exactly, charge.
If it's off cooldown, press it.
Exactly, right? It's like, oh, I'm just gonna back up and charge back in. We're good. So yeah, it was just one of those things. Like I wanted to do it. I wasn't really trying to like stay up late or anything. I was trying to find this right balance to go ahead and just dig into it. I do a lot of long streams. I was very used to, especially with speed leveling back before we had heirlooms for Battle for Azeroth, that it would take 24 hours to do a speed level. Then we got that down to 20, then 18. And so I was really used to these really long streams. And so I went into that. We were doing it and all that. It wasn't as hard as I thought it would be to stay up for 36 hours. I really thought it would be harder. But staying up past 36 hours, that's I don't know if I can actually do that.
It's definitely, as far as I know, it's definitely challenging, especially taxing on your body. So,
Well, I think he
Yes.
felt that with his sleep for sure. 2 weeks. Ooh, baby.
I was stretching constantly during that. Like I'd be like playing the game and then just suddenly I'd have like my leg up and just like trying to stretch my leg out.
maybe this time around, prepare your cooldowns and your consumables before charging in. But yeah, you mentioned, that wouldn't be the first big stream you did, and you are streaming a lot, and we are mostly YouTube content creators, although we do stream a lot. Your streaming is kind of like our secondary thing, which is something that we still focus on, but primarily YouTube. So, is streaming your main thing that you do in WoW? Have you ever thought maybe making YouTube videos or anything like that?
Streaming is my main thing. Unfortunately, I do not have the attention span to put out really nice videos like you guys do. Like all the work that you guys have done. Sorry. But all the work that you guys have done and kind of setting all that up, the animations, the cutting, getting the videos together and having that commentary, it's a lot of work. Streaming is more in my line because I'm very off the cuff. It's more about my ability to just make people laugh, to take a situation and just make fun of it. So that is a lot easier for me to accomplish rather than sitting down and fine-tuning like all that attention to detail. It's good when it's WoW, when it's leveling, because it's something I have that like special interest in.
Yeah.
Video editing is not that.
It is very specific indeed. It has very little to do with actually enjoying the game.
Yeah, the post processing. But Des, is like Twitch your main activity right now, or do you have any? To sustain yourself, like basic income stuff like that, or do you have anything else in the background working for you too?
No. It's just Twitch. I am constantly working on trying to find things like sponsors and reaching out and setting up for a lot of our charity stuff. So that's always basically just hustling in the background. But right now I am just living completely off Twitch, which is nice, right?
Is it now?
I might not be making a lot, but I'm making enough to live. And that's pretty cool that I at least get to do a job that I love. I get to do things that I love. We get to raise all this money for charity.
Sure.
And I'm surviving. And as long as I'm surviving, I'm happy.
That's what it is, man. Remaining humble is a great virtue. And
Exactly.
You did mention charity, and I don't know how many of you are aware, but DesMephisto has been raising awareness, especially for autism causes and general problems with disability. Trying to make sure that people with disabilities are getting acknowledged and recognized and being treated like persons. And you did mention that you raised so far 24K, was it, or am I mistaken here?
Over 22,000. Actually, I think we're almost at $23,000 now.
This is in total since you started with this campaign, like on the side. Because I forgot to ask you this: the thing with the Guinness World Record that also had the intent to raise awareness, right? Or am I wrong here?
Yeah, you're right.
All right. So it's always this with this, right? Because we'll get to it. Okay, he did mention that he has autism, and we 100% respect him for his courage and his drive for what he's accomplished and still going forward. And I know I'm gonna get a good story for this. So I know that at Blizzcon 2018 you had a breakdown. I think due to security guards telling you that your tickets were wrong or something, and they didn't handle the situation pretty good at the time. And afterwards, I know that Blizzard reached out to you, and you sort of became an advisor for them, making BlizzCon more accessible. And so, can you tell us that whole story and what was the outcome of it? Because I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so this was my very first BlizzCon. I'd always wanted to go. I had lived near Irvine my entire life, and I grew up really poor. That's actually one of the things that I loved about WoW is instead of getting like a $60 game every month, $15 a month, I was able to keep playing the game and be invested in it. So it was it was affordable. And so I always wanted to go and engage at BlizzCon, and I finally got that opportunity in 2018. My wife and we got tickets, and I was so excited. Unfortunately, a lot was going on, lots of noise, lots of chaos, lots of moving parts. It was my very first time there. I was very overwhelmed and stressed out.
Yeah.
And we go and we hand the tickets in, and we're immediately told that our tickets are no good. And I just start freaking out. I had high anxiety, just like parking, moving in, all that. It was very overwhelming for me.
Yeah.
And I fell to the floor and I started stemming. And so for stemming, I was just rocking back and forth.
Yeah.
I just kept rocking back and forth. I had headphones on, and my wife was trying to explain to the security guards that I have autism, that I'm stemming, and that to just let me be, and that she was going to go ahead and take care of the ticket stuff and make sure everything got set up and fixed.
Yeah.
While that was happening, a new security guard came, and he started just like full on like poking me, like just really, really hard.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, it's like just like I remember just that feeling, like that pressure, like it literally hurt, like just going into your arm. And I yelled out, "Stop fucking poking me!" And I started just stemming more and more. And again, this is happening in front of like at least 100 people that are waiting in line.
All right.
So I'm literally on the floor there, just rocking back and forth. There's everyone in line, literally looking at these guards surrounding me, all of this. And I'm freaking out more and more. They start saying like, okay, I think we need to call the cops. They supposedly thought I was drunk or something. I'm not quite sure what was going on there. We go through that. It was really, really horrible to experience. But I wish I could say that it, like, literally I left that event just going, this is what it's like to be autistic. This is literally what happens when you have a disability, and nothing's ever going to change that. Like I wasn't going to complain to the media or do anything, accept it as being, because that's living in a neurotypical world as a person with a disability.
Yeah. It's because I know the thing you mentioned, the thing with the poking. I know in some, I don't know if it's general for autism, but you have this extrasensorial feeling when you like get in, especially in that anxiety moment. If you get touched or anything, is like it's so like amplified for you, and you feel like it adds even more to the pressure you're already holding in during that moment, right?
It's known as sensory processing disorder. So it amplifies pretty much all the things. Yeah.
All right. But okay, so this was a horrible episode. But as we all know from very popular fairy tales and so on, things do tend to go in a more positive route after a horrible experience. What happened afterwards, Des?
So afterwards, I was reached out to one of the main people behind BlizzCon. I got a phone call. We went ahead and talked, and like at that point, I was just really excited to feel recognized, that they realized what happened and they wanted to make sure it wouldn't happen again. Again, as I had mentioned previously, I just accepted that this is the way the world is.
Yeah, you didn't go to the media or press or anything like that. You didn't call Blizzard or anything. They reached out to you after they saw surveillance footage or something like that, and so it's all on them.
Yeah, exactly. So they specifically went out to me and they're like, "Hey, this isn't right. We want to go ahead and try to make things more accessible for autistic individuals. Can you please help us do that?" And so I spent like an hour on the phone with them, just talking about all the little different aspects, from lighting effects to noise inconsistency, to just little small things about like maybe having things on our badges that allowed us to kind of opt into listing our disabilities, so that security guards could also be like, okay, we see this disability, we need to handle this situation this way. That's especially important for, like, say, someone who might be diabetic And
Yeah.
so if they're like shaking on the floor, it might be because they have low blood sugar, not because, they're drunk.
Yeah.
So, those little aspects. And then when we went to BlizzCon in 2019, I actually got to see a lot of these things in effect. Now, not everything was perfect.
Yeah.
There are a few issues. They had sensory rooms for autistic people, but those sensory rooms were also shared as the mother's rooms. So the mother's rooms are for breastfeeding.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. And so that led to like a really awkward situation that I still feel terrible about.
Okay, you walked in.
I was told it was in use, and I was asking, I was like, well, can't we share it? And out comes a mortified mother, and I'm just like, oh God, what have I done? Oh God. I felt so bad. I thought mother's room, because like society has a way of saying that only women are like the family caregivers. So I thought, like it was a family room, and that there just might be like a stressed out kid in there, and like, I still just needed to escape from the sound.
Right.
Not that. Oh my God, I was so red. I felt so bad. Oh.
Oh man, it's okay at the end of the day. I mean, there was, it cannot be perfect 100%, but carry on.
And the changes, I mean, the fact that they changed so many things, it's actually very impressive, and it goes to show what can happen when people, speak up and raise awareness.
Yeah, I absolutely love that Blizzard reached out. They also, sent me a ton of free stuff, which I'm not complaining about.
There you go.
That right there, the Signed Collector Warlords edition. You got that. And then that's where I also got this from. The
garage.
Warlords.
The garage.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I was eyeballing them the whole time.
Yeah, that's the geek universe. What it is, though, I think that like the most important thing here, guys. So Blizzard did not reach out to Des because he was this popular streamer or a leveling guru or anything. They just saw somebody with a disability, and they thought they weren't treating correctly. So they reached out, they talked to him, and got him on, advising them and, having his input on making future events more accessible. And this, I think, as part of this journey, and correct me if I'm wrong, DesMephisto here, but this was not planned. It was an accident that led to even more for you to acknowledge, a little bit of your cause, right? Because at the end of the day, your example set out, hey guys, there are people with disabilities. Let's acknowledge them and make it easier for them too. And it's such a big deal. And look at that, BlizzCon 2019, although not perfect, you saw the fruits of that horrible experience turned into something good. I think it's amazing. When I read that, I was like, wow.
Honestly, that's part of what led to the charity events. My very first charity event was in April 2019, where we raised money for autism during Autism Awareness Month. And that being seen there by Blizzard, being recognized like, hey, this isn't right, is part of what led to me pushing as hard as I have for charity efforts. Yeah. I honestly don't feel like I would be in the position I am today if it wasn't for them taking time out to actually recognize what happened and wanting to make things right, because that told me that I am capable of making a change, that I could fight, that I could try and help us out to make a little bit of a difference, rather than just being like, well, that's the way the world is.
Hell yeah.
And I'm thankful to Blizzard. I mean, obviously the situation sucks, but they handled it as well as they could after what happened. And again, it wasn't like out of a fear of a lawsuit or anything. They just genuinely cared and wanted to reach out and make things right. And that's the company that I've loved since 1997. I mean, sure, all the problems that might exist nowadays, at the core, Blizzard is still full of good people who do care.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to underline as well. See, you don't hear, especially in our outrage culture today, you don't hear these types of stories about Blizzard. Sure, we all know about the Activision push and all of that, suits, monkey business. But as you said it, man, there's still genuine, nice, talented, humble people within Blizzard. And I think that still breeds a little bit into, what they do in specific cases, how the games look or feel. They're still there. Hopefully more is to be developed, and more they will develop more this type of attitude and soul as they used to do much more in the past. But hey, we ain't going into no negatives here or anything like that. But guys, did you know DesMephisto has studied, I hope I'm not messing this up, neuroscience, and also trying to get a degree in pharmacy. Can you tell us a little bit about because I found this fascinating as well. Your what is it called in English? Your study field, your
Field of study.
Field of study. There you go.
Close enough.
So yes, I have a bachelor's in neuroscience, and I was in the process of getting my master's in pharmaceutical sciences. I'm currently on a leave of absence because of the whole thing going on with COVID. Yeah. I've finished my entire master's program. All I have left is to actually just finish my master's thesis, but I can't really concentrate with everything going on in the world. I don't have like a nice little study room. I can't just go out, get a coffee, go to a quiet room and study. There's just there's 50 layers of crap that you have to go through now that makes it just impossible. So I'm on a leave of absence, hoping that eventually we'll get a vaccine. Everything kind of goes back to normal, and I can be in a position that allows me to focus.
But is it something you so studying neuroscience and going into the pharmaceutical things? Is it something you want to do as a career in the future, or was it just something you were passionate about and wanted to understand and maybe help out with your situation as well? Why is it neuroscience and pharmaceutical stuff? What's the goal there? What's the incentive?
So it's a long story to go into all that. I'll try to give an abridged version. So my uncle is mentally challenged and also likely autistic, and I saw how he was treated and how people kind of interacted with him, and I noticed that I had a lot of similar traits to him. I was associating the autistic aspects to the mentally challenged aspects, and I was getting put in special ed classes because I wasn't performing at the right ways. Like I couldn't read until I was in 4th grade, for example.
Wow, okay.
And so I was being put in special ed classes, and it was this really frustrating experience to realize that, oh no, I'm going to be treated like he's treated. I don't want this. And so that's where a lot of things like masking comes in. A lot of autistic people have to mask to appear neurotypical. And so I only ended up with the diagnosis of ADHD, and that went on for a long while, but it led to a huge and massive insecurity in my own intellect. So I started pursuing science as a way of trying to compensate for that insecurity.
Right.
Thankfully, I had a really big interest in kind of understanding the brain, probably also kind of stemmed from the similar aspect of seeing my uncle and how he was treated and kind of wanting to understand how the brain as a whole worked to better kind of avoid or understand these situations. So I went through school. I went to community college. I did 6 years at community college just because I couldn't really figure out what I wanted to do. And then I found out about neuroscience. So I graduated. I went to university. I got my degree in neuroscience. That was absolutely fantastic. I loved every minute of that. I missed school every single day. I hated my master's program, but university, if I could, I would give up my Twitch career if I could make going to school like a full-time job. Just go to school, go to classes, study. Perfect. That I don't mind tests. I don't mind that. All of that was fun for me. I have a 4.0 in my master's program.
What is that? Is that high? Is that I don't know about that.
Yeah, that's the highest.
Well, congratulations, my man. I don't know what to say.
It's the only time in my career in school that I ever actually did that. It's insane that what happens when you put people in the field that they care about.
Sure.
That they do well in it. Who
didn't know?
that's
What a shocker!
that's one of the things I dislike about our education system is that they don't highlight what you're good at, right?
Yeah.
They force everyone through the same cookie cutter instead of like, hey, all right, look, you need this bare minimum to understand this, but we're going to focus on what you're really, really good at. And then we're going to accentuate that and we're going to help you with it. You know, obviously, perfect situation, it's not going to be very possible, but yeah, you do a lot better when you are interested in what you're doing.
Of course.
So with the master's program, the pharmaceutical sciences, I studied amphetamine and the effects on the endogenous opioid system. Specifically, so the endogenous opioid system consists of 3 primary opioids, mu, kappa, and delta. And so mu is usually associated with the euphoric effects of amphetamine. So like if you take Adderall, if you take methamphetamine, you're going to have this kind of high sense of awareness, this kind of euphoric experience. And that's usually where a lot of the ideas of addiction comes from. So by knocking it out, you can kind of look to see, does the addiction still exist? If the addiction still exists, what can you do to kind of modify that experience?
Wow.
And so that's kind of what I had studied. Obviously, since I had been taking amphetamine since I was in 3rd grade, it kind of strikes close to home and wanted to figure out a little bit more about it.
Okay. It's a beautiful thing, man. It's a beautiful thing. And wow, so you wouldn't expect, right? Like if you go on the first time on Twitch, search for a WoW streamer, you find DesMephisto, you wouldn't think that he was diagnosed with autism pretty later on in life, mind you, because I know you mentioned first off it was ADHD when you were like a little kid, but then the actual diagnostic came on like 29 years old, if I'm not mistaken, right? So pretty late in his life. And after that, getting to have this big ass impact, right, with Blizzard, with the whole incident, during charity streams, and on top of it, being in neuroscience and studying pharmaceutical stuff. I mean, this just goes to show, man, there's so much more behind the camera. And I'm segueing to this, but this is why we do this podcast. Because you never get the chance to really go behind the camera and know the person. And look how amazing this is, and what brilliant stories that he has behind. It's absolutely inspiring, man. Especially, your motivation to go into neuroscience. With the thing with your uncle and your insecurities based on that and what you've seen and what happened in your earlier years in school and stuff. It's pretty inspiring, and getting to do something that you were actually interested in and getting 4.8. I mean. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. What do you think, Flame?
I'm thinking about all of this because I find it incredibly fascinating.
Yeah,
I don't know what to say, man. I'm kind of blown away because I always find the field neuroscience fascinating. I never actually crossed paths with it, but just hearing people talk about it, it's pretty cool because. It's interesting stuff, like how does the brain work? Come on, really? Like this is, I don't know, still the most complex organ in the entire world. Everybody knows that, and we still don't know the limits of it. So it's very, very impressive, and much respect to anybody who's studying the brain. But yeah, Marcelian did say that you were diagnosed with autism at 29. How come it was so late, or what came about to you getting diagnosed at 29? If you can share that.
So this, unfortunately, is a very common story for autistic people, especially for those of us that kind of grew up in the 90s. We would get diagnosed with like ADHD. During that time, ADHD and autism weren't really seen as being a comorbid disorder. It was seen as being on the same spectrum, just opposite ends. Yeah. So once you had ADHD, autism kind of came off the table. It also added in the fact that I had mentioned my uncle who was likely autistic, who likely is autistic. His behaviors, like the hypersensitivity to sounds, the repetitive actions, etc., all of these things I did the complete opposite of. So I unknowingly was learning how to mask before I was actually masking. And so I would I went through all of that, and eventually it kind of just, I assumed these were like awkward little tics about me. The lack of friendship, I just thought like I just sucked at making friends. A lot of the difficulties that kind of went into that, they became personality traits rather than the sign of a disability. Not to mention, growing up, like my entire experience with autism was more on the kind of mentally challenged aspect rather than on the autism is like a whole spectrum, right? So you could actually be like me and have these certain difficulties and still be autistic. No, up until then, the only media representation I had was this kind of mentally challenged, where you had this difficulty with learning and other aspects and that you couldn't communicate. And so it was hard to kind of parse the two together. And it wasn't until after I graduated university and I started to try and adjust to the real world, where I was, working. I was working as a STEM educator at an amusement park. Ooh. So it's called iFly. They have this indoor air diving tunnel. So they have like this giant like wind tunnel, and you would go inside and you would like, fly basically. Yeah. And I would be explaining the physics behind that to groups coming in, etc. But I would have to commute all the way to LA. It was like a 2-hour commute. I'd be waking up at 5 a.m. And that's when I started to break. I think I lasted about a month before I had this like huge meltdown. I was having constant anxiety attacks. I was breaking things. I was hitting myself. The show basically really cracked, if so to speak. Yeah. And as we continued to go through that, it kept cracking worse and worse until my wife finally suggested, like, maybe you're autistic. And we started watching all of these autism shows. We saw Autism in Love in particular. And I started observing other autistic individuals and seeing that my entire perception of autism was completely different than what I thought it was. So my experience with that, I then started pushing to get tested. I ended up going through the testing. I had to do I went through a ton of self-diagnosis. I pulled up a ton of data. I pulled up literally I spent weeks researching autism to make sure that I was coming to a valid conclusion. I went to the tester. Turns out, autistic.
All right.
So
confirmed. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Who would have thought? So I went through all that. We finally got the diagnosis, and one of the things that I realized is that diagnosis didn't really help. And this is one of the things that a lot of us with autism face, is that there's no real tools or availability of anything for adults with autism. Basically, the disorder is seen as a child's disorder. So basically, as soon as you hit 18, you're expected to be cured, which is not the case. Many of us with autism as adults don't really function as well. I believe 85% of us are unemployed. Of the 15% that are employed, the majority of it is at part-time work, or we're vastly overqualified for the work that we're doing, i.e. having a master's and working retail. So, yeah.
Man, okay, man, this has been super, I knew this was gonna be a super good episode. I just knew it, so cool. Okay, my man, so when you're not, doing charity streams, or not streaming or leveling 30 more warriors, or whatever, what do you do in your free time? How does an off day look for DesMephisto? Do you get to relax, wind out, anything like that? What do you do in your free time when you're not in front of the camera?
Unfortunately, I think I'm in front of the camera 24/7.
Too much.
Especially now with COVID, right? It's not quite like I can just go out for a walk. I used to be really, really into weightlifting. I was doing that every single day. I had been weightlifting for over a year. COVID hit, gyms closed, can't really go out anymore. So I'm kind of stuck indoor by the computer. I pretty much play WoW 12-ish hours a day. I might watch a little bit of TV with the wife. Unfortunately, I haven't gotten to be as constructive as I would like. I think I've pretty much just dug myself entirely into this project with the charity stuff. Yeah. I've dug myself entirely with the streaming. I'm pushing really hard for partner. All of this work because I've I mean, streaming is basically making your own business.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure you guys can relate to that. There's no real off day when it comes to content creation.
Of course. But you know, it's nice to ask.
Yeah, even when I'm playing WoW, I'm not just playing WoW. I'm literally looking for more opportunities to like, okay, this is going to be like a really great thing to stream tomorrow, or this is going to be, and so it's just constantly, it's a lot of work.
Yeah,
it is.
We can relate to that.
Yeah.
Being in front of the camera, and especially being in front of the camera with at least something important to say or do, takes a little bit of planning, a little bit of forethought, or I don't know if I use that correctly, but it's not as easy. I was watching people, and I was always admiring people that just go in and just do their thing for like 12 hours. That's really impressive. But as far as our work concerned as well, and it seems like it's true for you, we kind of want to, do something, have a purpose for the stream. There has to be a reason to it. And most of the things that you do, at least the ones that bring the loudest, are, of course, for charitable events, for folks with autism and things like that. And you've done a lot of that, and it's clear, and I think a lot of people know about it. Have you also planned for like the next step? After all of this, do you want to expand the cause a little bit more, or what are your thoughts on this?
So I have a lot of plans. Like I have this, like, it's not like I actually have it written out or anything, but I have like a 55-step goal. Bit of an exaggeration maybe, or a bit of an under exaggeration. I'm not entirely sure where it falls, but the idea is to continue to grow the platform, to continue to expand. I have the Warriors for Autism event that happens in April. I want to actually take that outside of World of Warcraft. I want to expand it into other MMOs. I want to expand it into other games, because autism isn't just in World of Warcraft.
Sure.
Autism is all across the gaming community. So I want to expand that for April. I'm trying to go ahead. One of the things that I'm doing when pushing for Twitch Partner is I'm going to open a line of communication there so that I could, dare I say, harass them constantly about setting up for charity events in April supporting autism. I want to go ahead and move on for a ambassador, for the community ambassador aspect. Yep. Go ahead and add more autistic representation to Twitch. I then also want to go ahead and eventually start my own charity and my own organization focusing on disability in gaming, to continue uplifting everyone as we go through this process, eventually hoping to expand that into more areas, to just really go ahead and make sure that those of us with disabilities feel seen. It's one of the worst things about being disabled is to play something, to do something, to engage with something and be like, oh, I guess they didn't think about us.
Oh, yeah. And this is, I mean, if this is not inspiring, I don't know what is. Huge plan. I mean, we wish you the best of luck with it. I'm sure you're going to get to it eventually. And I know you've been applying for the Twitch partner thing. It's coming, man. I mean, I know we went to, I don't know, 2 or 3 processes before becoming partner, and a lot of folks do. So don't give up, man. I'm pretty sure if you have that single-minded Fury Warrior thing going on, you're gonna get that Twitch partner eventually. And I think,
like this is number 4.
Yeah, it's gonna happen, man. It's gonna happen. It's something that, and if you're gonna get that and get to do all that you planned for and all that you strive for, with this next step on bringing awareness and getting into other games and bringing more people with autism or with the general disabilities onto Twitch, I think that's absolutely wonderful. And man, I don't know, I have no more words for this. It's been humbling for sure.
I know. I could barely think of things, man. To be honest with you, like, no bullshit right now. You're very inspiring.
Oh,
I actually didn't know very much about autism up until recently, where you and other people have opened a little bit my eyes, and I started to research a little bit, because for better or worse, my immediate family, relatives, friends, we don't really have any tangency with it. And it's still something that people should know about, because I had a very basic and naive look on it.
A lot of people do.
Yeah, and that's because of the lack of information, and there's no real push towards it. And what you said actually kind of rang true, and I was actually really thinking about this when you said that whenever they're making the game, they didn't think about you, and it made me realize like people who are different are usually overlooked by society, and that's a big shame because every person is special. Clearly, everybody has something to offer, and everybody deserves respect and a place in society. And it just goes to show you that people can have neuroscience while I can barely read a book without falling asleep. So
I'm the same way.
So it's really cool that you're doing all of this, man. It's really cool that you're coming in front and talking about all of these topics. And I really hope that in any way that we can raise a little bit of awareness to your cause and maybe send some people over as well. And you are definitely an inspiring person, if not just for us, for a lot more people, and it should be that way. But where do you find the inspiration? Where do you find the drive to do what you need to do, to go that one step forward? Some people can find it in books, in videos, in tutorials, in talk shows, maybe in other people in real life. Do you have something like that for yourself?
I mean, apart from your uncle and what happened to you, is like any external inspiration?
So a lot of that is just diversity. As an autistic person, one of the things that I had to learn at a young age, even when I didn't know I was autistic, is that the world was going to knock me down, that I was going to fall down. There were going to be setbacks. I've had moments where I've had meltdowns so bad that I've almost given myself a concussion. I had these like hard moments in life constantly. I've had points where I've slammed my head into the floor until it's bled. It's really frustrating to walk into these moments, to have these parts, and they are a part of me. So I feel like that struggle, right? That struggle is naturally built in.
Yeah.
And so every time that I do this stuff, it's those struggles, that difficulties, these experiences that I've had that propels me forward, because I feel like that's the only option, right? If I don't push myself forward to keep doing stuff like this, other people are going to continue to suffer. Other people are not going to have their voices heard. Other people are not going to be able to have a better experience, because I don't want what I've gone through to affect others. I don't want others to have to go through what I've gone through. So I'm constantly fighting. I mean, hell, a year ago, I was on the verge of some very, very dark things. And unfortunately, that is true for a lot of autistic people. We have an average life expectancy of around mid-40s due to a lot of the difficulties that we face.
Yeah.
And things like that really push me forward to keep fighting, because I know we're capable of so much. I know that we can do a lot. We just need the right tools to be able to do it.
I'm telling you, man, all you're missing right now is a cape.
Yeah, that's what it is, man. And also, guys, so DesMephisto is still applying to be Twitch partner. Hey, you can help him out. Just look over there. Look at twitch.com, isn't twitch.tv.
Twitch.tv/DesMephisto. It's cool, you guys know him, and you can find them pretty often streaming WoW and doing other charitable events. Obviously, tune in to listen to the man. He has a lot to say, and it's really cool. Of course, Twitter as well.
Yep.
Everybody's talking about Twitter these days, and if you don't play WoW, but you still somehow came across this episode, then by all means check out the man's Twitter. See what's gonna happen. April Warriors for Autism, was it? In April
World of Warriors. That's the event.
Yeah. So that will extend seemingly outside of WoW. So cool stuff.
It's been wonderful, and Des, thank you so much, man, for taking the time and talking with us. I mean, it's been inspiring, humbling, eye-opening, all within it, man. You've been a blast to talk to. Unfortunately, we kind of have to like close it, because I think we passed beyond the hour mark, and Spotify will not allow us to go any further. But we will definitely repeat this as soon as we get. So I'm thinking, Flame. We're gonna close off the first season of the podcast soon enough. I think 15 episodes, and then on the second season we'll get all of the people back and talk some more, have more even specific stuff.
Yeah,
So-
maybe a little bit less WoW, maybe a little bit more WoW, but other things that we didn't touch on the first time.
Oh yeah. It's been awesome, man. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fantastic. Thank you.
Of course, man. It's been a real pleasure. It's been, like Marsh
An honor.
said, it's been humbling. So we really appreciate it. And guys, don't forget you can check DesMephisto out there.
Yes.
This is it for today's episodes. This
Yeah.
was the 10th episode of the MoCast, where we get to talk with a lot of cool people and find out what really takes, what goes behind the camera. And this was one of the more, let's say, emotional episodes, at least for me. I had a couple of feels. There.
That's what I say. If this wasn't beyond World of Warcraft, I don't know what the fuck is, right? So thanks a lot, everybody, for tuning in. Don't forget, you can find us on Spotify, on Google Podcasts, on Overcast, on iTunes, everywhere. Of course, you watch this on YouTube. It's all fine and dandy. Check the links in the description. Check out DesMephisto. Support him everywhere you can. And with that, have a great week ahead.
You, everybody. Take care. See you next time.
Still I play WoW.